from sight. Nobody republished it. It disappeared until the Book of Enoch was rediscovered in the Ethiopian region of Abyssinia in the 1700s.
Long forgotten until discovered in the 1700s, the ancient Book of Enoch shook the foundation of the early Christian church that found it. Everyone that encountered it was left shaking in terror, including the priests in power. The secret knowledge of the book made people go on different expeditions that drove them mad, and the ones who maintained their sanity were just not the same again. What is the content of this book? How is it explained by Joe Rogan? And how exactly did it make people mad? Strap in as we unravel the 2,000-year-old Bible that revealed terrifying knowledge about the human race. Before we delve into the details, we need to understand some important content about the Book of Enoch. Introduction to the Book of Enoch. The ancient Book of Enoch was found in Abyssinia, Ethiopia in 1773. It is also known as the Ethiopic Book of Enoch's pseudepigraphical work. Pseudepigrapha is a writing which claims as its author someone who did not produce it. In other words, a forgery. The real author wrote the book under the name of someone else. The idea is usually to provide the writing with some sort of authority that it did not originally have. According to Joe Rogan, a well-known on-air personality, the Book of Enoch is a book of essential truths tied down by politics and the human struggle for power among themselves. Joe Rogan is known for his solidarity with the Book of Enoch, and many scientists have been invited to his podcast show to talk about it. The Books of Enoch are part of a large pseudepigrapha group. Within this group are other books, supposedly penned by various biblical greats, with titles such as The Life of Adam and Eve, The Treatise of Shem, and The Testament of the 12 Patriarchs. The Book of Enoch stands as substantial proof that there was not a single Judaism practiced in Palestine during the Second Temple period, but rather multiple Judaism and apocalyptic Christianity emerged. The Book of Enoch is an Old Testament book containing events written long before Jesus was born. The original manuscript of this ancient book disappeared at the end of the 4th century. Enoch has been found in Greek, Latin, Syriac, and since the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, in Aramaic. Who found the Books of Enoch and how was it found? Was there a specific reason why it got hidden? Let's dive further. The man who found the devil. The authorship of the Book of Enoch is credited to Enoch the son of Jared. However, this book was written many years after his death, so it doesn't exactly correlate. And that brings us to the man who was said to have found the devil, James Bruce. When renowned Scottish explorer and scholar James Bruce set out to find a book he hoped would preserve the secret of ancient rites, he returned instead with an ancient Ethiopian depiction of the origin of the very source of evil itself, the devil. Denounced by the early church fathers and preserved solely, save for fragments, within the ancient Ethiopian tongue of Ge'ez, the Book of Enoch offers us a tale no establishment of the time wished to see credited. Rooted in esoteric Jewish thought, the Book of Enoch suggests that the hated and feared figure of the devil itself may once have been humanity's very own ally and mentor. At a time in which Britain was involved in lengthy territorial conflicts with the Spanish state, James Bruce traveled extensively, always studying the native cultures and artifacts of those around him. For a time, he was British consul in Algiers, spending several years pursuing his interests in antiquarian relics and ancient ruins. It is possible that it was at this point that Bruce first learned of the significance of the missing Book of Enoch, for, upon completion of his role in Algiers, he took it upon himself to set out in search of the Blue Nile, the true Nile of the ancients. Yet despite his scientific ambitions, Bruce also had a more arcane agenda, one rooted in the very tradition of Western Christianity and the mythology of its central antagonist. Passing through Alexandria, Thebes, and Cairo to name but a few places, Bruce arrived in the former Ethiopian capital of Gondor in 1770. From Gondor, he traveled through Abyssinia, ostensibly in search of the Blue Nile whilst also searching out the Book of Enoch. A member of the Canongate Kill-Winning Lodge Masonic Lodge, Bruce's reasoning for his comprehensive study of the ancient Ethiopian language, Ge'ez, and his travels to a region noted for its dislike of outsiders are both questions that only can be addressed by what Bruce hoped to find within that ancient text. Equated with the Egyptian deity, Thoth by some Freemasons, Enoch was considered the founder of the written language. It is thought that part of James Bruce's motive in uncovering the ancient text was due to this belief that Enoch was, in some way, the author of secrets that Masons believed they were the true inheritors of. Finding Enoch's words would validate their own beliefs. Instead, Bruce found himself confronted with a notion far more perplexing. While we have become accustomed to the devil as the fall guy for all that is bad in the world, he is a convenient excuse for the theology argument of why God always allows evil to happen. What we see in the Book of Enoch is that the original story contained no antagonist other than God himself. It is not surprising, then, that the Book of Enoch, with its narrative implying that the source of wisdom originated instead from those whom the Hebrew deity attempted to destroy during the flood, never found a place in canonized Christianity, and was left unpublished during Bruce's lifetime. To have made public such a story would have been to equate the development of a culture, of creativity, not with Christ and the institution of the church, but rather to Azazel and the angels who turned away from God. Such an idea was anathema to both the religious and social climate of the time. This tale would have caused massive unrest of the kind that few authorities were willing to entertain. As such, despite the richness of its imagery, the story of the Book of Enoch continues to remain but a footnote in histories detailing the life and times of this most inspiring of Scottish adventurers. The Dead Sea Scrolls. The Book of Enoch was also rediscovered at the Judean cave in 1946 to 1947 by some Bedouin boys caring for their sheep close to the cave. One of the young boys threw a rock into a cliff opening and was surprised to hear a shattering sound. Out of curiosity, he and his friends entered the cave and found several big clay jars, 7 of which had leather and papyrus scrolls. The Judean cave is near the ancient settlement of Qumran, located on the northwest coast of the Dead Sea. It is currently known as the West Bank. The scrolls were repurchased by antiquity merchants and scholars who found the texts to be over 2,000 years old. Many other scroll fragments were also found. The content of the books. Several clerical scholars have disposed of the book, claiming it contains revelations God did not divinely inspire. The ancient books of Enoch were forbidden from the Bible for unveiling profound truths about the world's creation. The books record a list of sensual fallen angels, violent giants, strange cosmological facts, and other mystical revelations, yet to be confirmed by Bible scholars. It is believed that the stories of Enoch reflect many features of Babylonian mythology. This book, credited to be written by Enoch, has also been confirmed to be a compilation of works that are mostly apolitical. This Joe Rogan argues against. He argues that though this story has myths of the Babylonians, these same myths contains answer to many of the scientific wonders of the world, and if it has been acclaimed through by Christian too, why then is the book called a fallacy? Enoch, the credited writer, often featured in the book, and often stepped into the role of the prophesied Messiah long before the time of Jesus. Others see him as a man who ascended to heaven by God to learn the secrets of the end of time. To others still, he is the product of what more or less amounts to ancient fan fiction. The story of Enoch takes place between those of the Garden of Eden and the Great Flood, both found in the book of Genesis. He is mentioned in the traditional Bible as being the 7th of the 10 pre-flood patriarchs in Adam's line. Despite taking place so early in the timeline, the book begins with Enoch's delightfully ominous description of the end times, detailing Earth being ripped apart and a final judgment of sinful men. We are also immediately introduced to mysterious creatures called the Watchers. In the beginning, this group of 200 angels was charged with observing history. However, they began lusting after human women and descended to Earth to take them as wives. This is where the story picks up the pace, and it almost reads like a prologue from Lord of the Rings. The wives of the Watchers birthed giants that devoured everything in their path. When resources ran dry, they just ate the people. Growing up, We always wondered where Goliath and other biblical giants were supposed to have come from, given they are all portrayed in a villainous light. I suppose a perverted mix of angels and humans is as good an answer as any. As these giants ransacked the lands, the Watchers taught the wives charms, spells, and the craft of herbology, likely continuing the sexist depictions of women as deceivers that were started by stories of Eve and Lilith. Meanwhile, the Watchers gifted mortal men with knowledge of metallurgy, fashioning weapons and armor, and soon after, the men began warring with one another. The Watchers saw how badly they had messed things up and went tattling on one another to God. They decided to pin all the blame on one of their own named Azazel, who is often depicted with goat-like features, giving us the term scapegoat. Fun fact. The passage of time at this point in the story is rather confusing. In response to the warring men, destructive giants, and crafty women, God prepared to wipe the slate clean. If at first you don't succeed, kill everyone. That is the phrase, right? Maybe I got that wrong. Noah is given a divine warning about the imminent flooding of the planet and sets to work on an ark. The plot jolts forward with Enoch suddenly appearing in heaven, with little to no lead-up. God immediately charges him with dealing out damnation to the Watchers, who would spend the rest of eternity as demons. He also seemingly creates purgatory to collect the souls of all people until Judgment Day. For many passages after this, God takes Enoch on quite the trip, giving him visions of the end of time. If you are familiar with the books of Daniel and Revelation, you will recognize a lot of the imagery here. It's just odd to have it shown so early on as opposed to the end of the Bible, as many of us are used to. God and Enoch start calling people out, naming names and telling them they'll receive no mercy. God empowers Enoch, turning him into the leader of the archangels named Metatron. The Book of Enoch is a series of important stories. One part discusses angels, a special tree, Jerusalem, and the universe. But the most interesting part is about fallen angels, who did intimate things with human women, and they had giant children called Nephilim. The angels also taught humans advanced stuff leading to a big flood and destruction. Nephilim means fallen ones. People see them as big guys like giants. This idea comes from the first book of Enoch, a special Jewish book. But there's a debate. Some think their size is because they're supernatural, while others say it's not right to think angels or demons can have babies with humans. Another idea is that the Nephilim were just regular people who went off the good path. Some say the sons of God were from Seth, a good guy from Adam's family, and the Nephilim were his family who turned away from God. The Book of Enoch is further divided into 5 other books: the Book of Watchers, the Book of Parables, the Astronomical Book, the Dream Vision, and the Epistles of Enoch. This book has a total of 100 chapters. The Book of the Watchers, Strange Beings and Hybrids. One of the most prominent figures in the Book of Enoch are the Watchers, angelic beings described as being both the sons of God and the sons of heaven in chapter 7. Many believe that the Watchers, referred to as the Grigori in Enoch 2, were angels who watched over the human race and would serve as the earthly guides for the very first humans. They were tasked with the observation of human development, but were restricted from interfering with mankind regardless of how compelled they felt to do so. Enoch tells in chapter 7 that humans and women had multiplied, and that the daughters of men were beautiful and elegant. It's understood that their beauty was so great that they caught the attention of the Watchers, these sons of God, if you will. The Watchers conversed with each other in this chapter and decided to take the women for themselves, impregnating them with their seed. This goes against the intended purpose of just watching, directly interfering with the life of mankind. The leader of these angels, known as Samjaza, sometimes pronounced as Samyaza, tells the Watchers that they should reconsider their choice, and that it would be him who suffered for such a crime against God. However, the other angels wear him down and tell him that together they will face the punishment, and that they will each accept responsibility for any repercussions. It's noted that in total, there were 200 of them, and together they descended upon earth to take the women as their wives. The Book of Enoch even named the prefix of the Watchers here, each of whom would teach the mortal women sorcery, incantations, and the dividing of roots. What's implied here is that the Watchers divulged information about the heavens and life that God had not intended for man to know. And so by doing this, they not only betrayed God by copulating with his creations, but also by corrupting them with knowledge that was not meant for them. The women then gave birth to children of the Watchers, and what they spawned essentially a hybrid of angels and humans. The Nephilim, as they are sometimes called. There's some debate as to what the Nephilim are, but when we look at Genesis 6, 1 through 4, it tells us that the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward when the sons of God, which we might say are the Watchers, went to the daughters of men and had children with them. The Nephilim are also described as heroes of old and men of renown. Many people, including Joe Rogan himself, have implied that the coming of these Watchers down to earth is the alien we talk about today. However, in Enoch, the spawn of the women are known as giants, and these giants began to consume all that men had built. The giants of Nephilim then began to kill men, and when they were tired of that, began to kill each other. During this chaos, we learn in chapter 8, the entity known as Azazel, who is presumed to be a Watcher, teaches man the use of swords, knives, and warfare, as much as the Watchers taught mankind the secrets of heaven, incantations, and sorcery. Azazel also teaches man the use of paint, stones, and dyes, so that man can manipulate the world and alter it. In 8:2, we learn that these acts of Azazel caused impiety to increase, fornication multiplied, and these transgressions corrupted man in many ways. The rest of the chapter tells us that the other Watchers taught mankind astrology, science, and astronomy, and with their presence, men were destroyed, and their cries reached the height of heaven. In chapter 9, Archangel Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel looked down from heaven and realized what was going on earth. In this chapter, they go before God and seem to pin most of the blame on Azazel, saying, "You have seen what Azazel has done, how he has taught every species of iniquity upon earth and had disclosed to the world all the secret things which are done in the heavens." They also blamed Samjaza, saying he had taught the mortals sorcery and that he and his Watcher had copulated with the women, creating ungodly giants. They asked God what he would have them do to bring restoration upon the earth. In chapter 10, God then sends Uriel to seek the son of Lamech, which is Noah, and tells him to conceal himself, to explain to him what is about to take place, in that all of the earth shall perish in a flood, and that everything which has come to be will be destroyed. He tells Uriel to tell Noah how to escape the flood, and how it is his seed that will remain in all of earth. God then tells Archangel Raphael to bind Azazel by hand and foot, and to cast him into the darkness by opening the desert, which is in Dudael, a region of the underworld. The Book of Parables. The Book of Parables is unique in that no fragments of it have yet been documented within the Dead Sea Scrolls, as the books of Enoch have traditionally been used by the Beta Israel community, and it is likely a book they carried south from Egypt to Cush, and later the Ethiopian highlands. The Book of Parables must have been part of the collection before 200 BC, as their primary holy book, the Orit, is based on an early Greek version of the Septuagint, in circulation between circa 225 and 200 BC, which only had 8 books. After 200 BC, additional books had been translated by the Library of Alexandria, and therefore, if they left Egypt after 200 BC, they would have had a larger collection of holy books. The origin of the Book of Parables is widely debated, with scholars generally ignoring the history of the text within the Beta Israel community, and instead claiming it was a Christian-era book written anywhere between 50 and 200 AD. There are several reasons why it is assumed to be a Christian-era text, even though it is clearly not a Christian text. But these pieces of evidence have all been manufactured by the translators, who assumed it was a Christian-era text and interpreted the text using Christian terminology. The most obvious example is the phrase "Son of Man," generally used throughout the Book of Parables, which is seen as a reference to Jesus Christ. Simply reading the text proves the text has nothing to do with Jesus Christ, and although it could be read as a prophetic text, was prophesying the flood of Noah, not the coming of the Messiah, like most messianic Jewish works. The person being referenced in the Book of Parables as the Son of Man is quite obviously Seth, the patriarch of all the humans that survived the flood. The Hebrew Ben Adam, which is translated as Son of Man, is also son of Adam, which Seth is introduced as in the open lines. After a brief genealogical introduction in chapter 37, Enoch is given 3 parables. These are not parables in the same sense as the parables of Jesus, but rather oracle-like material. Chapters 38 to 44 concern judgment. Chapters 45 to 57 concern those who deny the name of the Lord, and chapters 58 to 59 concern the fate of the elect. The final 2 chapters are conclusions which add some legendary elements to the translation of Enoch. The first parable concerns coming judgment from the perspective of the elect or righteous and the non-elect and unrighteous. Chapter 38 begins with the expectation of the community of the righteous appearing and the sinner of this world being judged. The righteous one will appear before the community of the righteous and lead this judgment. For those who denied the name of the Lord, it will be better that they never were born. This is said of the one who betrays Jesus in Mark chapter 14, verse 2. This is also a theme in the later Ezra literature when describing those who are facing torment in Hades. This time of judgment is when the secrets of the righteous one will be revealed, and all the kings of the earth will perish. In chapter 39, Enoch receives the books of zeal and wrath, as well as the books of haste and whirlwind. Verses 3 to 8 is a description of Enoch's experience of being swept up in a whirlwind from the earth into heaven, where he saw the dwelling places of the righteous among the angels. This place, under the wings of the Lord of Spirits, is where the righteous will praise God forever. In 39 verse 6, Enoch sees the elect one of righteousness and of faith, presumably the same as the righteous one in 38 verse 3, and responds to this vision in praise. Enoch then sees a vision of hundreds of thousands of angels, innumerable and uncountable in chapter 40. Among these angelic beings are 4 who do not slumber. Like Revelation 4 to 5, there are 4 figures on the 4 side of the Lord of Spirits, surrounded by an innumerable crowd of beings standing in the presence of God. There was Michael, the merciful and forbearing, Raphael, who is in charge of disease and wounds, Gabriel, who is in charge of all power of strength, and Phanuel, who is in charge of those whose hope is eternal life. Enoch is introduced to all the secrets of heaven in chapter 41, including how kingdoms break up and how the actions of people are weighed in the balance. He sees the cosmic stores and the sun and moon, which no one can hinder. Chapter 42 continues the theme of mystery, with a poetic personification of wisdom looking for her place among the children of men, but eventually returning to dwell among the angels. The next 2 chapters describe other cosmic secrets, such as lightning and the names of the stars of heaven. The astronomical book, calculating time with the stars. Chapter 72, 82 in 1st Enoch are also known as the astronomical book. This section is a lengthy discourse on celestial bodies with the goal of calculating the length of a year. In chapter 81, Enoch is told to read from the tablets of heaven and to report this reading to his son Methuselah. These books seem to contain all that will happen to all the flesh of the earth, although this determinism is based on astrological prediction. Enoch passes this knowledge on to his son in chapter 82. There is a clear statement here also that the true astronomical year ought to be 364 days. The computations which Enoch learned are true because they were communicated to him by the angel Uriel himself. The 1st Enoch calendar. This section of the 1st Enoch is quite esoteric and seems more or less unrelated to the study of the New Testament. John Collins observes the point of this section is to prevent sin by calendrical error, and the right observance is determined by an understanding of the heavenly world. The major issue at the heart of this section of the 1st Enoch is the length of the year. Everything in the unit serves as proof for a 364-day calendar rather than a 360-day calendar. While an arcane and difficult topic for the modern reader, the issue was of critical importance in the 1st century since it has ramifications for proper worship. The problem of the calendar is therefore important for the New Testament studies, as well as Dead Sea Scrolls scholarship because of the dating of Passover. If one holds Passover according to the wrong calendar, does it count? Is it a sin to celebrate Passover on the wrong date? The Qumran community thought keeping the wrong date to be sinful and condemned the priestly aristocracy for using a 360 calendar, while the Qumran community used a 364-day calendar. That the first Enoch supports a 364-day calendar may account for the popularity of the book at Qumran. The dream vision, the coming of doomsday. The Book of Dreams and Visions is likely the first attempt to retell the history of the world from the point of view of sheep. In this case, Israeli sheep, who had to contend with Egyptian wolves, Philistine dogs, Babylonian lions, and Persian eagles. The astronomical book was written from the view of Methuselah, Enoch's son, which Dream Visions continues, however. The majority of the text could not date to before the early Persian era. The first 6 chapters of the book seem like it was attached to the astronomical book, along with the beginning of chapter 7, which includes the vision of the sky collapsing and the earth being flooded. This vision of Noah's flood matches the description of the world found in the astronomical book, which includes a solid sky above the world with water above it. The Epistles of Enoch, the description of a godlike Noah. The final chapters of the first Enoch are fragments of other documents appended to the main text. Chapters 106 and 107 are a narrative of the birth of Noah, which probably comes from a lost Noah apocalypse. When Noah is born, he has white skin and hair as red as a rose. His eyes glowed like the sun. As soon as he was born, he spoke to the Lord. Lamech is naturally upset by this odd child and runs to his father Methuselah for advice. Methuselah in turn sends him to Enoch, who predicts the flood as a judgment for sin and names the boy Noah. Enoch also predicts Noah will be the remnant for Lamech in the oppression to come. These predictions are confirmed because they were written on heavenly tablets. Katie Williams, in a podcast session with the Rogan Experience, said that he was really frustrated as a back person that they weren't included more in the Bible until he found the lost book of the Bible. He went on to project the removal of the Book of Enoch as a propaganda by the early white fathers of the religion to dominate the blacks even in the church. According to Joe Rogan's theory, the only people in the Bible who weren't black were the Romans, which is why Noah being albino in the Book of Enoch is significant because he was surrounded by black people. Thank you for watching. Check out another interesting video by clicking on the link appearing on your screen right now. See you on the other side.